Lads, we are back.
Yep, still here.
Hi, guys.
Hello. We're starting to get a bit of a routine here. I say we're back. Alex has his new line of we're still here. So Daniel is hello, guys. The friendly smile on your face going to be your thing?
Yes, I'm the bridge.
See, you're kind of like, remember Yu-Gi-Oh? There was the card like polymerization that would fuse people together. You have the hat that I sometimes wear. You've got the glasses that Alex has. So really, you're the best of the two of us.
Oh, thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
I'm like Blade.
Like Wesley Snipes?
Like he has the power of the all the powers of the vampire, but none of their weaknesses.
I didn't expect a Blade reference.
I tried to keep it comic book based. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Breaking news, by the way. You think we're going to talk about hockey? Not to open the show. You think we're going to talk about basketball? We will a little later because Donald's going to be on the show in a few minutes. No, breaking news. The guys don't even know I'm going to open the show with this because I've just opened Instagram and I saw the funniest thing. The CFL and XFL about to announce entering formal talks to explore opportunities. Yes, this is big news from Dave William Naylor. Great name.
The Rock coming back to Canada.
Vince McMahon in Toronto.
Can you imagine?
Does he still own it? Is that what's up? I know they sold the naming rights or something to The Rock.
I don't know.
So didn't The Rock play in, or he was on a squad in the CFL for a very small period of time,
for a
right?
bit after university.
Right. So The Rock's coming back to Canada.
Love to see it.
Do you remember the PK Subban Steve Dangle conversation?
Yes.
Where Steve Dangle kind of burst out laughing, where it's like you call him DJ or Dwayne, and then PK Subban's like, I'm not gonna just go up to him and say, hey, The Rock, what's going on, man?
No, yeah. I mean, it's a good point. Like, I don't know. Like, if I knew him on a personal level, I don't think I'd call him The Rock either.
Hey, The Undertaker, what's going on, man?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't go to The Undertaker and say, hey, Matt. I think it's like Matt Calloway or something.
It's a Mark Calloway, yeah.
Mark Calloway. I'm not going to do that. I'd call him, yo, what's up, Taker? What up, bro?
When I was a kid.
Those crappy nicknames like hockey players do.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Schultze! You think they ever go and they're like, take it.
You know what's funny? When I was a kid, I always thought his real name, I'm like, that sounds more like a hockey name. So I'd always do create a player of a goalie named Mark Calloway for some reason.
That's not bad.
I don't know what to say.
CFL, man.
Yeah, but before we get to hockey, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I didn't mention it before we started for a very particular reason. Have you guys happened to see the Ferrari car for next year?
Why is there green?
Daniel, have you seen it?
Yeah, I didn't get that.
The burgundy, I can understand. I'm gonna screen share. I don't know if you guys can see my
green.
screen. It's right there.
You know what I think? Maybe they're trying to incorporate more of the Italian flag. Like, we use red way too much.
No.
So, for those of you who are not watching on the YouTube, first of all, how dare you? We're looking at what's going to be this season's Ferrari livery, right? And towards the rear wing, kind of like how for like this year Mercedes have sort of a blend into silver. Ferrari has the sort of back to burgundy that we saw in, was it Magello they wore?
I think so.
Yeah, and then there's also like right behind the driver's sort of seat are these like lines of green. Like it doesn't look bad, but at the same time, the green is more distracting than the giant shell on the side and at the front on the wing. It's very weird to me. I don't know.
You know what'd be a great promotion for this car?
What? McDonald's?
Because you know how for those of you who are not looking on the YouTube, there's UPS on the car. They should deliver packages with this car. As like a promotion thing.
The UPS car inside, I believe it's like a brownish color.
Mm-hmm.
It should be red.
Yeah.
The deliveries are going to get there fast. I mean, Charles Leclerc would try and make a turn too early in the delivery and probably wipe out. But I love you, Charles. You're my favorite. But first off, I couldn't help. The first thing I noticed when you screen shared, it wasn't the Ferrari livery. It was you had about 12 tabs open on your computer.
Oh, you always bring this up at every.
Yeah, I know.
It is. There's a girl in the program named Priya Hall. I had an English class with her in second semester. I think it was children's literature, and like I didn't know her, right? And we just happened to have been in the same writing lab too. Like the first conversation with her in this English class, like, what program are you in? Journalism? Oh, same. Who's your writing coach? David Singh. Same. Second year. Oh my God. Complete coincidence, right? So anyway, I get to know her and we're talking one day, right? And I'm like, I don't know how it came up. I'm like, Priya, you know what I hate? She's like, what? I'm like, people who have too many tabs open. She just opens her computer and there's like 100. And I'm like, this is impossible. I can't stand it. If I have more than 2 tabs open, like when we do the show and I have articles ready on my computer, it kills me. And that's why, like in the doc, the moment we're done, people aren't going to know this. Whenever we're done talking about something in our Google Doc where we have our show notes, the moment we're done talking about it, I delete it because it just bothers me too much.
Yeah.
Same on my personal notes.
I'm surprised because you're in English and you do a lot of essays.
Yeah.
When it comes to like, don't you like go back and forth between resources or like sources?
Yeah.
Or like once you look at one, you're like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Really?
To go back. Is it going to be inconvenient to then like have to reopen it and then close it? Yeah, it takes me a lot longer. Well, don't forget, I spend like way too much time on my essays, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm the guy who like I'll finish it like a month early, and then I'll spend the next month just constantly reviewing it. It takes a lot longer when you have to go back and keep opening it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it helps with my sanity.
You should teach me that.
Just right click, close it, man. It's that easy.
Oh no, the essay early part. That's like,
Yeah.
It's a very simple idea in creative writing that you're never done it when you're done your first draft. The moment you finish something, it's a first draft.
Okay.
You have to, like, you need to take time. Like if a book is finished, Steve Dangle wasn't just done the book, right? No. You need to sleep on it more than just one day. You're gonna have like 6 or 7 drafts of something. That's the key with like any sort of writing, like besides just creative stuff. It's really, really important.
That's true. I'm not gonna have. Oh, go on.
No, I was just saying, think about when you write when we write an article for a class, or because Daniel's cool, he writes articles for the hockey writers.
I know I can't have Will Baldwin finding mistakes in those ones.
But no, but obviously once you've done the article, like when I wrote my feature last year for my class, I think I rewrote like certain paragraphs like 5 times because I'm like, this isn't right. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, man. It's just revision is so important. Like, listen, I'm a journalism student, but if I ever had to, I know no one's going to, but if anyone ever asked Adam, what's your key for writing? I'd say, listen, review.
Don't sell yourself short. People are going to ask you.
And when you are asking someone to review something, you never, ever give them the curse of knowledge. You don't say, I know it's bad, even though I think I said that to Daniel when he helped me with some work. You just give it to them. Because the moment you sort of put that thought in someone's head, they start looking at the article or any sort of piece of work a different way. The curse of knowledge is so bad. Yeah, I mean, I like that. That was a good little rant to start. So Donald should be here in a few minutes. So we'll save the NWHL for a little second here. Instead, what I do want to ask you guys about quickly to stall time here is I was looking at the NHL scoring leaders the other day, right? And all of a sudden, who do you think number 1 in scoring is first off? Without looking at it, by the way, Daniel, you damn cheater.
Connor McDavid.
Here's the thing. I looked at it last night, so I'm not going to answer.
Yeah, I think I saw something like there was a chart they made for Sportsnet. They were like scanning it. So I think it's Connor McDavid. It's like 38.
All right. Donald, by the way, said he'll be here in a few minutes. Sorry, say that again, Dan.
Isn't it Connor McDavid? He's like 38.
45 points.
45.
Yeah, 30 assists, 15 goals. Do you know who second in scoring is?
Leon Draisaitl?
No.
No?
No, and this is points total, not just goals. McDavid is second in goals, by the way, 15 with Tyler Toffoli. Matthews still at 20 to lead the league.
It could be someone like we don't think of.
It's definitely someone you don't think of, yeah.
Kane is second in league scoring. He has 38 points, 1 more than Draisaitl right now.
We knew he was going to carry the team some way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that he's so it's incredible to say this, that he's underrated somehow nowadays. Like, you could make the argument that he was the best player in the world when they were winning all those Stanley Cups in the early 2010s, but I just really have so much respect for Patrick Kane, the player. he is the new age Pavel Datsyuk. That he will never be considered an all-time great, but players and just how I'm sure if you asked a lot of young players whose highlights do you watch more than any other, it's going to be Patrick Kane. Yeah. Mitch Marner will probably be up there soon too. Though like Patrick Kane is probably the grossest player just in terms of his hands are second to none nowadays. He's just so good and fun to watch as Patrick Kane. And again, he's a huge part of the Blackhawks right now.
Yeah. I think it's and I'm saying this like as someone that I think has really tracked his career, that I remember when he was like an 18, 19-year-old, or I even remember him in the World Juniors. And I think it's just he comes with that new wave kind of thing of American players that they become so good so young. And I think that we kind of got used to that in a way where you see the influx of all the guys who are considered the top guys now, that they're a lot younger based on what you would look at like, 10, 20 years ago. So I think it's just a lot more. I think there's that mentality now that you're like, you look at him like, oh, he's 32 and we have the other young guys going on. But like, I think that's the main reason that I believe that's going on, that he's not getting the same recognition as like a Connor McDavid or a Leon Draisaitl or even an Austin Matthews.
I think one thing with what's going on in Chicago is I think the last few years it's been the talk around Chicago hasn't necessarily been around the players on the team, more so the management and some of the mistakes they have made. And I think if you actually look at the players, instead of just saying, well, they would have been this, they would have been that if management had done this and they had done that, but they still have competent players, right? I think that was the thing with Chicago when we've had so many discussions about this team, and clearly he is still world-class elite player.
And I think I completely agree that I think management and the way things have been the last few years has really overshadowed that, because I look back on like elementary school or even like high school where every kid had a Patrick Kane jersey. Like everybody who wanted, I didn't because I only bought the goalies, but yeah, like a lot of like my friends, they all bought Patrick Kane jerseys.
It was like, I think at one point it was the highest selling jersey in the league. And I mean, again, you also see when I've gone to any international games, if you see an American jersey, good chance it's Patrick Kane. You see a Team Canada jersey, yeah, you're going to see Sid. Naturally, I wore Carey Price. You see a lot of Jonathan Toews. It was really cool that they sent a little video in, Jonathan Toews did, because, and by the way, we've had this conversation without even mentioning the fact that Patrick Kane just played his 1,000th game. Holy cow. Good to see Jonathan Toews, by the way. He looked good. There was a video where I guess there were different lightings in both, and people saw like the Twitter video and thought he looked really, really sick, because we don't know exactly what's wrong. But then the Instagram version had like, it just felt like they were using like a filter for his Instagram, sorry, his Twitter video. So hopefully Toews is back soon, or just I wish we knew what was wrong with him. Obviously, we just need to tell us Jack, because that's his personal health. And, luckily Chicago don't have Steve Simmons digging around to sort of find out what's going on here. So, yeah. By the way, comment. You know who leads the league in plus minus?
I feel like it's Joel Edmondson.
It's Joel goddamn Edmondson.
I figured.
Plus 22. You know the last Canadian to lead the league in plus minus?
Who?
Montreal Canadian, that is.
Guy Carbonneau.
Someone from the Daniel's quiz. Whatever.
Yuri Sakak.
There we go.
He was an answer. Who?
Yuri Sakak.
No, not Yergy Sakak.
The other one. Yeah, that one. Him. The one that
Max Pacioretty was like.
Oh,
wow,
that's interesting.
We dug too deep in that one.
I'm gonna pause it because Donald is in the waiting room.
Okay, good. Fellas.
Yes, Adam.
Yes, Adamo.
God damn it. We're talking basketball now. We have a guest here today. Donald is back. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd
Pleasure to
have-
be back.
I'd have major issues if it was just the three of us talking basketball. Like, no offense to you two, but I don't know if our knowledge is there.
Wouldn't go very far. Like, I know Carter was good at dunking. Why is Skip Bayless tweeting things? Who is Myers Leonard? Am I saying his name properly?
You are saying his name properly. I don't think it's good to give him attention, but you know.
Yeah.
Really? You know what's a shame, because I was looking him up yesterday. He's a really nice dog, like great dog.
You're gonna start with that.
What? He's just got a great dog. We're starting with
I
that.
know. It's just the context of everything.
This is what we're starting
Great
with.
dog. Like great dog. It's such a nice dog. Okay. Anyway,
This is a dicey topic.
yeah.
There we
Well,
go. There we
There
go.
it is.
hey, fair enough. Before Donald, we kind of had you on because I love when the four of us and like Will and Mike get into some sort of like just Twitter thread. I forget how it happened. I think Mike might have quote tweeted a Leafs loss or something. And then Donald joked like coming on the show and talking about the 2013 Leafs collapse because you were at Maple Leaf Square. And we're going to talk about that later. And somehow it just went into, all right, let's get Donald on.
Well, like I said, I'm glad to be back. Glad to relive the pain of that playoff experience. Dive into my whole Leafs fandom that is non-existent anymore. But like, I'm happy to talk about it.
Before we get there, though, I have put together a pop quiz for you.
Okay.
I hope you have been researching why certain NBA teams are named what they're named. I prepared 3 teams.
Really putting my NBA fandom on the spot, but let's try.
You know what we got to do? We got to have like a show when we just have like, we give the quiz to Will, we give it to Donald, I don't know how big a fan Mike is really, but just put the guys head to head. But okay, I don't even know my basketball now. Is it what are the Pelicans? What city are the Pelicans from?
New Orleans.
New Orleans. Why are they called the Pelicans in New Orleans?
Isn't there Pelicans in New Orleans, I'm guessing?
I don't know.
I can tell you why the Lakers are called the Lakers.
The Lakers are not on the list today.
Oh,
They're not.
I can tell you why the Raptors are called the Raptors. We established last podcast that dinosaurs are from Toronto.
Yeah.
Why are Washington called the Wizards?
Because they were originally called the Bullets, and they had to change their name because they were called the Bullets, so they went to the Wizards. I don't know why Wizards was the choice, but I know their name were the Bullets, and that did not fly in Washington, D.C. in the 90s, if you know anything about American history.
I was going to say, because they don't play like Wizards on the court from what I know. They are not a magical team by any stretch, no matter what Michael Jordan could try and do.
No, they're not a magical team, but Bradley Beal is doing very wizard-like things with the ball. So, I mean,
He's the Merlin of the team.
yes, Merlin.
I do have an answer for the Pelicans, though, if you want.
Why are they called the Pelicans?
Okay, so the name Pelicans is a reference to the brown pelican, the state bird of Louisiana.
I was half right.
The same thing as New Jersey Devils. It's because it's the Jersey Devil.
Can you imagine if all of a sudden there was just a Canadian team, like the the NFL expanded, and we just had like the Toronto Goose? Could you imagine?
Toronto Goose.
And you're about to say the Toronto Blue Jays.
No, like it's
That's already a team.
bird,
Check that
right?
one off.
It's based off a brown pelican.
Yes.
Isn't their logo a white pelican though?
I don't think so. Like maybe.
All right, Donald. Why are San Antonio called the Spurs?
Because of the Spurs on Cowboys boots.
That's a good one. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. You know, it's a
Because
great name, by the
Because
way.
that's what their logo is it not? Is it? Well, I mean, it's not really. It's kind of, I don't know. Like it's at the bottom, but it's kind of like a U thing. I don't know. I've never been to Texas before, but I know Spurs are the things on Cowboys boots, so that makes sense.
Would you ever go to Texas?
Yes, absolutely.
That's good. Same here. I always wanted to go there for some reason.
Why not?
I used to have a fear of it.
Why? Because
When I was really little, I watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And ever since then, I don't think I could ever go to Texas.
thought you were gonna be like, that SpongeBob thing when like SpongeBob and Patrick made fun of everyone in Texas being dumb, and then Sadie got all mad and like tried to beat them up.
And then somehow it's true.
Yeah,
Like what they said is true.
man. I mean,
I hope you guys don't have any listeners in Texas. I'm sorry, people from Texas.
I don't think so.
listen, we ripped the States last episode. All right. We're not happy about it. NHL players in the States are apparently getting vaccines, and we're here just clamoring for any sort of like, Donald, we're not getting this vaccine this year. I don't believe it.
I don't believe that we will be back for the fall. I mean, fingers crossed. I hope. I would love to hope, but I mean, probably not.
All right, Alex, want to go ahead with the 2013 talk here?
Yeah, I need to know this story because it is. It was emotional. It was an emotional 60-minute plus game. So you said you were there. I need to know what happened.
Okay, so before I even get into that, I feel like I should give context about like how I became a Leafs fan and all that stuff.
Sure.
So I only became a Leafs fan because of Hockey Night in Canada, because all my parents watched was CBC. So in the morning before I would go to school, CBC was on. When I would get back, CBC was on. I don't know if you guys watch like any TV or know the show Coronation Street, which is one of the.
Yes, my man.
my parents, my mom's a huge fan of Coronation Street, so that was always on at 6:30, 7:30, because I always change the times around when hockey started. So, and like we only watched CBC because my parents did not want to pay for cable, so we had like 30 or 40 stations, and the sports stations would skip over. So it was only like the main stations like CTV, City TV, CBC, CP24, Weather Channel, some of the American stations. So we didn't even get like Sportsnet or TSN. So the only sport that I would watch would be Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday nights. So my dad was a football fan and then turned into a hockey fan when he moved to Canada. My dad is American. I am half American. So I inherited all the bad New Jersey, New York teams from him. So I'm a Jets fan. It's very sad. He wasn't a very big basketball fan, but the New Jersey Nets did play in New Jersey. So like if he was a fan, he would be that. He was a big Devils fan, but before he was a Devils fan, because the Devils moved in '82, I did do a little research before I came on the podcast. My dad, Adam, you will love this, was a Montreal Canadiens fan.
I love it. Because when I was watching Hockey Night in Canada, it seemed like Montreal and Toronto were playing like every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. He would take the opportunity to rub it in my face that I was a Leafs fan, and the Leafs at this point sucked. Like they made the playoffs in 04, obviously, or 04, and then there was a lockout, and then there's that whole stretch where they did not make the playoffs. That's when I started to watch, because obviously they're still showing the Leafs on Hockey Night in Canada.
I'm so sorry.
And he would just take the opportunity to just like, you're a Leafs fan. Like, it's okay. It's okay. They suck, but it's okay. It's okay that you're a Leafs fan. And also, like, he had seen the New Jersey Devils win 3 Stanley Cups. They made, even though they lost to LA in 2012, like, obviously things are still going very well for him, where he could make fun of me for being a poor Leafs fan at like 11 years old. So fast forward to 2013 when the collapse happened. Context, I'm in grade 7 and I'm starting to watch and play basketball like way more at this point. This is the first year where I'm really getting into it, but the Raptors suck this year. So I'm going to put it into context of the Raptors. So this is the first year with Kyle Lowry on the team. They tried to get Steve Nash. Nash is gone. He went to LA, so they had to trade for Kyle. First year with Jonas. They had to trade Jose Calderon away to get Rudy Gay to get some semblance of balance on the team. And then like later that year, they trade Rudy for like all these depth pieces, and it turns into like the big trade that turns around the Raptors, and they become like this better team. But the Leafs but in like the hierarchy of Toronto teams, the Leafs are the good team because they're going to make the playoffs for the first time in like 10 years. Mm-hmm. So I will also say, so my 2 favorite Leafs on that team was JVR and Kadri. JVR because he wore number 21, and number 21 was my number. I'm born on July 21st, and Kadri because my dad claimed that he was from Toronto, but doing research for this, he's from London. So I feel a little bit conflicted because I feel like as Leafs fans tend to gravitate to the dude who's from Toronto, like whoever it is.
Yeah.
I know Marner has a special place. I know
not so much. Anymore.
Not so much, but Tavares.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyone who's from Toronto, Leafs fans tend to gravitate towards that guy, hometown guy, all that stuff. Anyway.
Going to come in free agency in the years coming. It's a whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, all the Toronto guys are going to come home and save the Leafs. It's the whole thing. Does it ever happen? No.
Once. It only happened once.
Okay. So the Leafs make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Play in the Bruins, obviously. My dad caves at the last second to bring us to the square for game 7. Now, I wasn't entirely in the square itself, but I was outside of the square. So like with the Raptors how they have the big screen that you can see from outside the square. So I was probably about a block or two north of the square itself because my dad's biggest fear, because there's a 50-50 chance if they win or lose, is that Toronto is going to turn into Vancouver in 2011 and riot the city. That is his biggest fear, that it's going to turn into Vancouver in 2011 when they lose the Stanley Cup. So we stand back. And my dad's biggest thing as a dad who like, he never coached hockey, but I played ball hockey a little bit after school, was like never look past your opponent and always keep ahead of like who you're playing. And we're up for the Leafs, I shouldn't say we're. The Leafs are up 4-1. And I find this copy of the Metro, which is like this daily paper in Toronto. I don't think it's in circulation anymore, but it was always on like, if you ever took the subway, there would be like 10 copies of the Metro just like laying on seats. And I found a copy of the Metro just like in some building somewhere while I was intermission. And I'm looking, there's an insert and it has the bracket of like who's next. And it's the Rangers beat the Capitals in game 7. They blow them out like 5-0. It's like, we can beat the Rangers. And then the Penguins will probably beat the Senators because the Senators suck. Like, even though they upset them, like this is Sidney Crosby we're talking about. Leafs, Penguins, conference finals, like sign me up, like we can do this. And my dad's like, there's still a quarter left to be played, or sorry, a period left to be played. And by God, this man was right. This man had the foresight to like, believe that like, you know what, like this is the Toronto Maple Leafs we're talking about.
Yes.
So when it gets to 4-3 with a minute and a half left, I believe that they are going to lose this game. And sure enough, they tie it. As a sports fan, I'm very pessimistic. It's the Toronto tradition. Like Toronto sports fans just like pessimism everywhere. So it's 4-4. And my dad makes a conscious decision. It's like, okay, we should probably get out of here because they're going to lose this game. But we didn't really get out. We ended up sitting, I don't know why he made this decision. We ended up sitting in the GO station, downtown Union Station, listening to like the crowd's reaction and dictating on the crowd's reaction, would we stay or would we go? And we hear this collective like boo, this sigh, and we hear Leafs fans like running into the station, just like cursing to high heaven. So my dad's like, yeah, they lost. And then we went home. And that was my experience as a Leafs fan.
You're the first Leafs fan swear. You're probably looking to the board saying, all right, when's the next train board near? We got to get out of here.
We gotta leave. And we lived in Scarborough at the time, which was the crazy part. So we had to take the subway back, and that would have been about like 45 minutes to an hour. And that was, I don't know if that was the smartest decision at the time, but it was just to see like these Leafs fans like standing around just like, yeah, like we're going to make it, like it's going to be good. And just like slowly over the third period turn into despair. I will never forget it.
I think most people haven't forgotten it. Adam and I were watching the game with Mike last night on FaceTime, and you can still tell that it haunts Mike and I, because one bad game or two bad games we're blowing this entire thing up. We need to rebuild again. This team is garbage. Trade Matthews, trade Marner, trade Nylander. It's funny. And then you realize we have a lot of issues that we need to work out. That's what it is.
The Leafs have like 4 All-Stars, and it's like it feels like the fan base can never enjoy a thing. Like the Habs haven't had a superstar who isn't a goalie forever. And like the Leafs are just oozing with talent. As a Canadian fan, you just think, what's going on here? Who hurt you? And then you remember, the Boston Bruins for 3 straight playoffs.
Lots of people.
So wait, was your dad, who does he cheer for in that scenario? Because obviously those are the 2 teams that he would have hated the most.
I guess Toronto, living in the city, because he moved to Toronto in the 80s. So he lived here and got to watch like Toronto consistently fail and fail again. Yeah. But New York's hate for Boston in general, just like growing up there. My dad's from New Jersey, so I can't really say New York, but the hate for Boston, like as in the New York area, is just unmatched. It's a different level. Toronto hates Boston for sure. But New York, it's a completely different scenario.
It's good to know that in the States as well, just everyone just hates Boston.
Everyone hates Boston. The only people who like Boston are from people from Boston.
This is true. So just what from there, it's just been like, you know what? Nah, I'm done with the Leafs. So we're moving on now. Raptors.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So the first Raptors game that I ever went to was probably 6 months after that. Nah, probably not 6. Let me count. 5 to 6 months after. It was a preseason game. This was the first year that the Raptors were like good for a long time since Chris Bosh left. It was a preseason game. It was against the Minnesota Timberwolves. We were still living in Scarborough at the time, but we like moved like a couple weeks later back to like Toronto. So we ended up going to this Leafs game. So what happened was I won a contest at school that my teacher put on, and the prize is 2 preseason tickets to a Raptors game. There are nosebleeds, like they weren't really that good, and it was a preseason game, so it's like trying to figure out like who's going to be the last like 3 guys that you're going to assign on the team.
What year was this?
This was 2013.
Oh, so the tickets weren't as expensive as they are now.
They used to be like $5, I remember.
Yeah. And then like the one year that they just like, they're like, we're going to cash in now and raise prices. So, but they were free. Like I won them in the contest, and those tickets were probably pretty cheap because obviously the Raptors were not as good back then. They actually lost the preseason game, if I remember correctly. And there's a running joke between a couple of buddies of mine that go to Raptors games that every time that we go, we win when we show up, or the Raptors win when we show up. And that was the first. So the joke is like the first time that I ever went to a Raptors game, they lost, even though it's a preseason, they just ended up losing. And this was with Minnesota, and I'm pretty sure Minnesota was like the worst team in the league that year, and they ended up with I'm trying to remember. I think that was the year Wiggins gets drafted, 2014. So they sucked that year, and Canadian basketball legend, Vaughn legend Andrew Wiggins ends up with the Timberwolves. Whole other point, but they ended up sucking. But I remember like the fun that just like a pure basketball game is when you have like literally no idea what's going on and who's playing and who the good guys are. That's when I remembered like being like really, really sucked into it. And I was like, okay, like I want to know more about basketball. And then the Raptors make the playoffs and they go on this whole run, and here we are.
Lads, Donald, serious question here. So in the NHL, the All-Star game doesn't really mean anything right now. There is a thing of every team has to have a player. It just feels like nowadays players they hate going to it. They'd rather have the vacation time, right? So it's jarring to me when I go and see NBA Twitter and I see Skip Bayless losing it. I see like MVP awards and that, like, sorry, not MVP. Yeah, All-Star game MVP stuff, the attention to it. And it feels like such another world. So why is Skip Bayless making the noise about an All-Star game MVP stuff? And why are we questioning a play like LeBron's legacy in an All-Star game? Why?
So personally, like as a basketball fan, I never got so like the MVP of the season. Like I understand like criticism if like a player does not get that award, but All-Star Game MVP and Finals MVP, I've never really understood like why that is such a big deal when even though basketball is it's a top end sport, like you only really win if you have the best players. I never understood the MVP like argument and how that like takes down a player's legacy. I would actually say that if you read any of the quotes from like James Harden or LeBron James, they did not want to be there. No NBA player wanted to do an all-star game in Atlanta, who is handling the COVID crisis terribly. Like they still have clubs open and stuff like that in Atlanta. I don't think anyone really, really, really wanted to be in Atlanta playing this fake all-star game put in like one night. Like, I don't think the guys really, or like basketball players really wanted to be there, but they obviously like went through the motions and still like tried to have a good time with it. Like, I'm pretty sure LeBron didn't play the second half of the All-Star game. Like, this whole thing was a farce. And I think the more and more it goes on, I think the guys who consistently make all-star teams are like, okay, it's another all-star team. Like, it's another weekend that I got to spend in like Indianapolis or Atlanta or this city that no one wants to go to, while the first time all-stars are still like, I still want to be an all-star. Like, I still want to go. Like, I don't know. I don't understand the whole argument about like all-star MVPs equating to someone's legacy, because it just seems like the players who are like first-time all-stars or like they've only been an all-star like a couple of times, they tend to go like a little bit harder for that award than like a LeBron James or like a dude, because LeBron has 3 or 4, I want to say. So it doesn't like even really matter at the end of the day. And like Giannis was the right person to win the All-Star MVP. I don't think this man missed a shot from the field, even though it was like all dunks and he hit a couple of step back threes. I don't think he missed the shot. So like, sure, give it to Giannis. He had like 35 points.
Now, naturally, if he was a Raptor, or it looked like he was going to be a Raptor, and Giannis, again, in that scenario, still wins it, it's a national headline, and we all love the All-Star game, man.
Exactly.
I have one question, Donald, about this. What were your first impressions when Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid were put on the COVID tracing protocol?
I thought the game was going to get canceled. Like, why would you do this? Like, I guess it was kind of lucky that it worked out that one dude from one team and another dude from the other team both had it, so that rosters are still equal. But I seriously thought this was going to get canceled until it came out that this happened in Philadelphia, not Atlanta. And what I didn't know at the time is all these dudes get fresh cuts before the game goes on, because because Joel Embiid made a joke and it's like, why did I go get my cut in Philadelphia when I could have gotten my cut in Atlanta? I guess they like, I mean, when you have a barber that you trust, like speaking from experience, like when you have a barber that you trust, you cannot betray that barber with another barber. So shout out to my friend Alex for cutting my hair. But my whole point is I thought the game was going to get canceled. Like if 2 dudes are getting sick before they are in contact tracing, we don't know if they have it, before they even step like foot like into Atlanta, because a lot of dudes flew in that night or Saturday night, Sunday morning. Like, why would you still have the game going on? Like, this is a terrible decision. So I thought the game was going to get canceled. I'm glad that it went on. It gave me something to watch that night, but I thought it was going to get canceled.
Sorry, go on.
No, just quick question. In the NHL, if you decide you want to skip the All-Star game for non-injury reasons or non-family emergency stuff, you get suspended 1 game and you have to take it either before the All-Star game or after the All-Star game. Is there a rule like that in the NBA?
I don't think there is, because that doesn't really happen. I would say that like sometimes it's like ticky-tack injuries that like, yes, you could probably play on it, but other dudes want to take that whole week to rest and they're like, I'm not going to play. But if someone were to say like, nah, I don't want to go to All-Star, like I don't want to go, like that just doesn't happen. I don't know what the penalty would be. Probably be a big fine, probably be like a 6-figure fine and definitely some sort of suspension, because like it's the NBA's premier event. Like other than the playoffs and the finals, like because I didn't know this until now, actually. Like, sponsorship in the NBA only happens on marquee games. You're not getting sponsorship like in a February matchup, Milwaukee and Orlando. You're not getting sponsorship for that. You're getting sponsorship for the marquee events, the marquee days, the playoffs, and the finals.
Right.
So not having your stars there is like tremendous. You're losing money, basically. So I don't know if there's a rule about that, because they basically force them to go. You're basically forced to go. But no one tries in the All-Star game. And like most dudes only play like 10 minutes. So
right. Yeah, sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
Just like my one last thing about this is, with the decision of the All-Star game and with everything that kind of happened the day of with Embiid and Simmons, has this kind of changed your opinion of Adam Silver, or kind of reinforced what you kind of thought about him already?
So I'm not really sure, because I think Adam Silver, let me try to find like the right way to phrase this.
Great name.
Yes, great name. Maybe not the greatest commissioner in the world. That's what I have to say. Great name, maybe not the greatest commissioner.
Could it be Gary Bettman? I'm just joking.
Yeah, Gary's solid.
I don't want to get Will upset. I don't want to get I don't want to get Will upset if he's listening.
He's riding into the show right now.
Well, I know Will is not the biggest fan of Adam Silver. So a lot of what we have like within like my group that watches basketball and I talk about basketball, like what happens that is not related to game stuff, like I don't really care about. I care about like what happens on the court and how a guy looks. Everything else, it's not really interesting to me. Like, yeah, it's important to know, but I'm not like as interested in it as in like, what is this team running and like how have they changed since the last time they ran? So what I would say is, I think Adam Silver started off as a very good commissioner, and he made the necessary decision, like with the Donald Sterling affair, like kicking him out, banning him for life, and making him sell the Clippers and paying that big fine. I think it was like $5 million. Like he had started off very well, but like consistently, it's like sometimes it seems like he can be like a pushover in the way that like David Stern wasn't, because David Stern would not put up with that. Like, or excuse my language, would not put up with anything like bad that would ruin the NBA's image. And with this whole like the shut up and dribble stuff, the China stuff, the Daryl Morey tweets, like it just seems like he makes the wrong decision every time. But people like Adam Silver, so I'm not sure. Like he could probably do some things better. He could probably do some things worse. He's not the worst like commissioner in the world, but he's definitely not the best commissioner. So,
I'd like to give you a choice, Donald, on the next things we're going to speak about. Do you want to talk about speculation and fun stuff, or?
By the way, judging on the first thing we got from Donald, we ignore the man with the nice dog.
Okay, we'll just talk about the fun stuff then.
Just cut out that man.
No problem. So, Chris Bosh, Hall of Fame nominee. Your thoughts?
Hall of Fame nominee. I think he's a Hall of Famer. Chris Bosh should be a Hall of Famer. That shouldn't really be. I think Chris Bosh gets. This is going to be very weird, but I think Chris Bosh doesn't get enough credit for the Miami titles, and he gets too much credit for his stay in Toronto. With the couple of playoff appearances that happened, those playoff appearances didn't really amount to anything. And people who don't really watch the Raptors are like, Chris Bosh should have his number retired. Chris Bosh was the only guy that kept this franchise relevant after Vince Carter left. And all of that is true. And Chris Bosh definitely has like some place in Raptors lore, but like a number retirement, that doesn't really sit right with me. It just doesn't. Like, Chris Bosh could have been a better player for the Raptors, and the Raptors could have surrounded Chris Bosh with better talent. You can make the argument that he was never really given the chance to succeed with crappy management. Like, you have this 6 whatever forward who's in the post. You have the number 1 pick. Why do you draft Andrea Bargnani? Or why do you draft LaMarcus Aldridge and like pair like 2 big men together? Like, why don't you trade the pick for something better? that actually makes sense to pair with your like perennial all-star guy. So in that sense, I feel like he gets too much credit for the Toronto stuff. But if you like really look at the history of like Toronto's Raptors basketball between the Vince Carter era and the Lowry DeRozan era, and it's just like that lull. Like there isn't really a lot going on. I think he made the playoffs twice or 3 times here with the Raptors. Like doesn't make a lot of sense. But Chris Bosh deserves a lot of credit for like taking a step back, becoming that third wheel in Miami, like just doing like the necessary things like rebounding the ball, playing pretty good defense, like learning how to space, learning how to shoot. Like that wasn't really his game in Toronto. He was like a post up kind of guy, with by the basket kind of guy, pick and roll kind of guy. Learning how to shoot and space the floor for Wade and Bosh. Like he doesn't get enough credit for that stuff, like adapting his game to make sure that Wade and Bosh could Wade and LeBron could like get to where they need to go. So that team could reach the potential that they were looking for. I think he doesn't get enough credit for that stuff. But yes, definitely Hall of Famer. Definitely Hall of Famer. Like 12-time All-Star. And a lot of that's because he's in the East. Like if he was in the West, maybe he's like a 6-time All-Star and he has the rings and all that kind of stuff. But given like what the requirements are for to make the Hall of Fame, like it's without a question he's a Hall of Famer.
For sure. And when you mention people, I guess like when he was in Toronto, I am one of those people that I was so sad in 2010 when he left. I remember where I thought there is just darkness in this tunnel kind of thing, where I know that they did bounce back, but I know what you mean when it comes to like that era of things where you had Vince Carter and then you have really like Bosh, and then you kind of just you like held on to him for way too long. But I completely agree. But I'm really happy too that he's in the Hall of Fame conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I don't think it's any question. Like, I don't think the roster did, or what do you call it? I don't think management did like the best job of surrounding Bosh with like the right talent, but Bosh maybe also like there was a cap to him as a player to like how far you're going to go. Like I'm just looking at it now. 06-07, they make the playoffs and they lose to that 6-game series to the Nets. And I'm pretty sure they were the higher seed. And then they lose to the Magic in 08. And that was it. Like they made the playoffs like 2 years in a row with Bosh.
Yeah, the Hito Turkoglu era.
Primo Pasta. Shout out Primo.
I'm going to think about it like this. If Chris Bosh wasn't the guy, he wasn't a bad guy to have behind the guy.
No, absolutely. I mean, we saw what it was like in Miami with Wade and LeBron. Like Chris Bosh as the third. Chris Bosh was probably an overqualified third guy, but probably not the best second guy that you would want on your team. But I mean, like I said, Bosh definitely deserves a lot more credit for those Miami teams, just like molding his game to fit with Wade and LeBron. Like he became a way better defender. He could space the floor. Like rebounding was a big thing for him. It's just like doing the little things that like for you to be able to get the ball was like, that's how Chris Bosh became. I mean, that's how he helped Miami win. Obviously you have like LeBron and Wade and they're doing their thing, but you also need Bosh in that equation.
I'm going to try.
Rodman. By very limited basketball knowledge, he sounds like Dennis Rodman. Maybe not as crazy. Dennis Rodman. I would say like in the overall like power rankings of like guys, I don't think Bosh comes close to Rodman. But if you're comparing him to like what like the Rodman role, he's definitely in the Rodman role where you're grabbing rebounds, playing defense, but he got more touches on offense. Like he would like this was a skilled offensive player. Rodman is like a zero. He's a zero on offense. A lot of that stuff is coming back from like putbacks and stuff like that. Bosh had an offensive game.
Okay. I'm gonna try to make a hockey comparison here. I don't know if it's gonna work. It sounds like Chris Bosh was the Phil Kessel.
Yeah.
To Gino and to Malkin and Crosby. Am I close?
Daniel, I think you're gonna have to answer this.
Am I close?
You're gonna have to answer that one.
It's pretty accurate. Yeah. Like, you had two guys that were in Toronto that they weren't technically vocal people all the time where, you didn't really surround them with much. And then suddenly they go to like a stacked team with two Hall of Famers. So,
Yeah.
and, Crosby's arguably one of the best. So same as LeBron. So I could see that.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm glad I figured something out here.
That was a good one.
Yes. Good. Okay. Last few days, I've seen it all over social media. Is Kyle Lowry getting traded or what? What's going on here?
I don't buy it. I don't buy Kyle Lowry's getting traded. We touched on this last podcast, but it's the contract. He's making $30 million per year. It's very hard to match up that salary while still equating with like an equal amount of talent that the Raptors could get back. So like the guys the teams that really need point guards don't have like the proper like trade packages that they could put together to get Kyle Lowry to Toronto. So it's like the Clippers. The Clippers is the big one that gets brought up because, Kawhi and Serge Ibaka and Kyle all won here in Toronto, which is funny that you can't give the Raptors credit for being like a great team as a Toronto team. But if you put those guys on the Clippers, like the redheaded stepchild of the LA teams, they get all the credit in the world. I don't know. That's just very funny to me. But what I mean is like, you have to get like the trade package would be like Zubac and Beverly and Lou Williams. The thing is like, if you want Kyle Lowry, you want future assets as well. Like the team is good, but you also want to kind of stack the cabinet a little more. The Clippers have no picks to give. They have no picks to give because they traded them all for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I mean, it's kind of working out for them. Like they're good, but like you want to pick. What I'm saying is you want to pick for Kyle Lowry. You want something that is going to help your team in the future. But the thing is, like, if you're going to trade Kyle Lowry to a contender, the picks that you're going to get back are not going to be the best picks in the world. Like, you're not trading Kyle Lowry for the number one pick in the draft. You're not doing that. But you want a lottery pick, or you want a pick in like the mid-teens. Like, that makes sense for a Kyle Lowry trade. You're not getting that. Like, Kyle Lowry is going to raise your floor and he's going to raise your ceiling. If he does that for the other team, the value of that pick is going to go down. It's going to be in the mid to late 20s. And you're not going to trade Kyle Lowry to some mediocre team. Like, yes, it will raise their floor, but Kyle Lowry wants to compete for championships. Like, you're not really trading him to, like, I don't know, like, I'm just using this as an example, like Orlando for them to become like, there's no knowledge that they're interested in Kyle Lowry, but I'm just using that as an example because like they're the standard of like mediocre teams in the NBA. Not trading Kyle to Orlando so they can go from like the whatever seed to the 6th seed, and then he can play 2 years in Orlando and then he signs somewhere else. That's not what you're doing that for. You want to trade Kyle to put him in the best position to win, but you're not going to get the best package back because those teams probably don't have the assets to make it like somewhat equal. So like teams like Denver, Miami, Philadelphia, the Clippers, you're not going to get that premium package back. But the thing is, so there's this like dichotomy. Like, if you want to trade Kyle Lowry, you want to reward him. You want to give him the choice of where he wants to go because he's been this dude that has been loyal to the team. He's served his time. They won a championship. He's done nothing but been loyal. You want to kind of give him the option to like go where he wants to go because you want to give like the best. It's doing business in good faith. And the Raptors had that little bit of the reputation when they traded DeMar that they weren't doing, business in the best faith possible. You're kind of changing that perception a little bit, showing that like, hey, we take care of our guys. Like, we'll send Kyle Lowry where he wants to go. And like, I have no reporting, like nothing based on this, but Philadelphia, like he's from Philly. Like Philly makes a lot of sense. Like if he wants to go somewhere, it's probably Philadelphia or the Clippers, because obviously he won a title with Kawhi. Serge and him were very close for a long time. If you ever saw like Raptors like running out the tunnel, it was always Kyle and Serge at the end, and they did their handshake. So like obviously he's very close with those two guys. the Sixers make a lot of sense. I know him and Joel Embiid are close. Like I said, he's from Philadelphia. They have a little bit of a more enticing package because they have some nice young players. Like Tyrese Maxey could be interesting. I don't know if you would get Matisse Thybulle back in a package for Kyle Lowry because he's a premier, like becoming an all NBA caliber defender, all defensive team defender. Like he is a very good player. I don't think you're probably going to get him back in a package for Kyle Lowry, but you could get like Tyrese Maxey, who's a nice young guard. You could get Danny Green back. I mean, that means nothing, but you kind of have to get him back to make the salary work, like a pick. Like these are not premium trades we're talking about because of the money and because of the teams that he's linked to.
Right. Also, you don't have to worry about making up rumors on this show. We do that all the time.
Yeah.
Make it sound like that random Twitter insiders NHL underscore.
Yeah, but I think ours are realistic. That we don't know if they're true, but they're realistic.
To be fair, I do pitch Ben Sherratt for Austin Matthews every other show. So
that is indeed
that's kinda
true.
weird.
equivalent Donald was saying Bismack Biyombo for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Not gonna happen. Absolutely crazy. Yeah.
Last thing for me. I'm a couple or yesterday actually, the NHL or it was leaked that the NHL is going to sign a deal with ESPN for their US TV right deal for starting next year. How big of a deal is that for the NHL? Like what can ESPN do that they do for the NBA right now that can transfer over to the NHL?
That is an absolutely huge move. Like that's a forward thinking, like in the future, like let's move it up a level move, because this is also my personal opinion. And this is like, I'm not like, okay, because me and my little brother have this conversation like all the time. Personally, like I said, this is my personal opinion. Hockey, it seems like it's a bit closer, like out of the 4 leagues that are available, like football, basketball, baseball, hockey, I believe in my opinion is the clear 4th because they just don't have the TV money outside of Canada. Like you're not getting that in the States. And my little brother tries to give me, he's like, oh, hockey is growing in Europe. Like hockey has a weird fascination in England. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But basketball is a global game. Like 25% of NBA players are from not the United States. Basketball is huge in China. I don't care where else you're talking about. China's the biggest country in the world. I don't care. I think the biggest sport in China is soccer, if I heard correctly. But basketball is still huge in China. Like my whole thing is that like getting ESPN behind hockey is a very good thing. Oh, so the point that I was going to make was like, to me, that hockey is like attendance in hockey, I think is good, but the numbers for TV aren't as good. So like, it's more like it's a clear 4th behind. Like baseball has an attendance problem. Like there's too many games, not a lot of people go, but baseball's on all the time and they have a relatively okay TV deal. If they're paying dudes like $400 million a year, they have a pretty good TV deal. But my whole thing is like, if this is a good TV deal and if it's with ESPN, it probably is. That's probably going to increase the cap in hockey. I don't know how much that's going to do, but guys are probably going to get paid hopefully a bit more. Like, because obviously hockey is like 4th also when it comes to paying those guys behind football, basketball, and baseball. Like you get some like crazy contracts in basketball and baseball. Like Otto Porter is getting paid $30 million a year. Andre Drummond's getting paid $30 million a year, and both those guys may get bought out. Blake Griffin was getting paid over $30 million a year, and he got bought out. So you're probably going to see, hopefully you see guys in hockey getting paid a little bit more. I don't remember like what the highest paid salary is in hockey. Isn't around like 13 million?
I was going to ask you, what do you think it is? You think it's 13?
It's under 15. I want to say that.
It's under 15. I believe McDavid makes 12.5.
Yeah, McDavid makes 12.5. That's actual cap hit. I think actual salary is, I want to say it's either JT, John Tavares, or Matthews at 15 million.
But yeah, like McDavid's total thing, by the way, Don, it's like an 8-year deal, 12.5 per.
See, that's the thing. That's the other thing that I don't really like. I don't love about hockey is like these like very long contracts, like these 8-year deals, because the NBA used to have them. The NBA used to have like 7-year contracts, and then dudes would get bought out in their 4th year and would take like enormous cap hits, like the Josh Smith contract in Detroit. They finally, I think this is the last year where they're paying Josh Smith, but they had to buy him out with like 2 years left. But that was 4 years of additional money on the books where you couldn't spend. I mean, Detroit isn't a free agency player anyway, but you couldn't spend that money because you're paying it to Josh Smith, who isn't playing for you anymore. So that's the thing that I don't always like understand about hockey and other sports. Like, why do you commit to these big long-term deals by the time they either get restructured or you have to buy the guy out?
Would you believe me if I told you they were 15-year deals in the NHL?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, do you know the story of Zach Parise and Ryan Suter by any chance?
That way they signed with the Wild, right?
Yeah.
That's all I know, but yes.
It's massive contracts. They've only just hit the halfway point. Both still have 5 years left. They're going to be in their 40s. Cap hit are at about 7.5 each. And it's just, you can't do anything with them. And they've been anchors. And do you know what's funny about Minnesota with those long-term deals? They've been mediocre forever. Like in like 3 or 4 years, there are going to be some really screwed teams in the NHL because of that. Like, and I believe there were some conversations with the CBA that got extended last season about maybe contract links being brought so the league could protect the owners from themselves, and it didn't go anywhere. So it is a problem. It is like the Montreal Canadiens have a goalie they have signed for another 6 years after this. He's already 33. Not looking great.
What was Ilya Kovalchuk's contract, Daniel?
It was
15 years.
It was 15, but Lou Lamoriello tried 17 years with the Devils, but then that's when they got penalized for circumventing the cap.
Here you go,
Yeah. But yeah, so the NBA did have like 7-year contracts, 8 years contracts, and then they got shut down. I don't remember the reason why they changed, but like teams, it's the same reason. You want to stop owners from themselves to locking themselves into these big deals. And now I think the max you can do is 5 years.
Man, that would solve so many problems. Oh, seriously, you don't.
You brought up, like, I think it's interesting. You brought up that the contract thing. I just think the players I think the players in the NHL like staying with one team. I think that's what the thing is here. Like, even when they hit UFA, and I think John Tavares and Artemi Panarin changed the game in a way, because when was the last time we saw prime star free agents leave their original teams before those two?
I believe last time you were on the show, Donald, you said that Giannis had chose loyalty in the NBA. And you had a bit of a laugh about it because, I think we all did, because loyalty in the NBA are not two words, like they're not something I put together. And I think to add on to Alex's point there's just this, like, loyalty is so big in the NHL. And I think both with players and management, and it screws them over so much. Like, when you're talking about 5-year deals, I'm like, do you know how often we actually get deals that are 5 year? It's either like 2-year bridges, or then it's like 7 or 8 years, and they look terrible, absolutely terrible.
And the other thing is, you mentioned players getting paid more, and you're hoping that NHL players are going to get paid more. That, I mean, I'd argue it started to happen with the young guys, and then the pandemic absolutely murdered any chance of that happening to anyone anytime soon. Like, half the league is within $1.5 million of the cap. That's insane. That never happens.
Mm-hmm. Well, is that everything, guys, that we need to, that we would
One more thing I'd like to ask Donald.
Yes.
And thank you again, Donald. You've been so kind with your time.
No worries. I'm always available, always here.
So the Raptors 905.
Yes.
The season is done. They got eliminated by the Delaware Bluecoats?
Delaware Bluecoats. Funny enough, the Philadelphia 76ers, that's their affiliate.
So this was probably one of the, most dominant teams in the regular season. They were averaging 118 points per game. I know that they were kind of trying to go for the championship again. But how do you feel about the future for the 905 and helping with the Toronto Raptors moving forward?
So I think I mentioned this, but like the Raptors 905 is very integral to the Raptors' success overall. A lot of guys came to the 905, Fred, Norm, Pascal, even the guys that didn't really work out with, like Bruno. Like having them in the 905 and having a chance to develop them. Raptors are one of the few teams that really use the G League to their advantage. Like a lot of their coaches also end up in the G League. I think I mentioned that, like the Stackhouse comparison where Stackhouse was there, and he turned that into a job at Vanderbilt. The G League is important. The 905 is important to the Raptors' success. We saw Jalen Harris had like stretch runs during this. Like he looked pretty good in that last game. Like he was finishing with contact, finishing with authority. Like he's 6'5", like almost 200. Like he looked pretty good. He looked pretty good, and I think there's a path for him to get minutes. I'm not sure. He's kind of on a two-way deal. The 905 is interesting. I think they signed Henry Ellenson on a 10-day contract today. I was surprised that they didn't sign Alize Johnson to that 10-day contract because he looked really good. Like I think he was probably the Raptors 905 best player. Like rebounding, playing hard defense. Like he has this like north-south game where like he can kind of take the ball off the rebound and kind of make a play. Like he looked really good. He kind of fits the Raptors bill of like a dude that doesn't really have like a lot of size. Like he's kind of undersized for his position. Like he's a power forward, 6'7", 200 pounds, 210 pounds. Like he kind of fits the build of what the Raptors have been doing for a long time. That's actually probably why they signed Ellenson because he's 6'10", 240. Like he's a bigger guy. Raptors could use some size. They could probably play him at the 5 because he's so big. But my whole thing is like the Raptors, because the infrastructure is there, because G League rosters usually change year to year. Like you only bring back a certain number of guys because some dudes are getting pro contracts out in Europe or South America or in the Middle East. You don't really know what the roster is going to look like. So if you have a style and a system that works, you just find the players that work with that system. And there's probably a couple dudes like who have showed things on the Raptors 905 that can turn them into 10-day deals or potentially something more. Like Gary Payton II has looked really good for the Raptors at times. Like, and I've always been a Gary Payton II fan because he got some run with, I think he played with LA for a little bit. He played for Washington for a little bit. He's a pretty good defender for his size. Not really much of an offensive game, but like very stout, very fundamentally sound defender. He's someone that like I bet teams will probably take a look at. Like if Brooklyn had like roster spot available, like I would definitely look at him because he just plays so hard all the time. Nick Stauskas, Mississauga legend, like he looked good for the Raptors in 905 at times. Like he could probably find like another 10-day contractor, turn that into a European pro deal. I think he played in Spain last year, I want to say. I'm not entirely sure. But the Raptors 905 will always be good because they'll always find guys to fit the system and guys that have been underlooked their career. And if they can turn that into a pro deal somewhere else or some sort of NBA opportunity, the Raptors 905 will always still facilitate like that change. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next year, like if they're in a bubble next year. But Raptors 905 will be fine. Like they'll probably compete again. Like as long as they keep the talent and the infrastructure in place that is similar with the Raptors infrastructure, they'll be fine.
Well, Donald, again, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Hopefully, again, we'll do this again real soon. We got to keep doing these Raptor updates, see how the world of basketball is shaping out. I want to do more of these name quizzes, so do the research here. Again, why are they called the Denver Nuggets?
Because of the gold rush.
The McDonald's sponsorship.
That too.
What?
Just kidding. I'm kidding.
The Denver McNuggets.
You're gonna have to explain this to me in a second because I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, though, seriously, thank you very much, Donald, for coming on. We will be back in a second. We're going to talk about the NWHL season. Looks like it's resuming. Everyone here rooting for the Toronto Six. We're going to go a bit more into the new TV deal, expect to be announced later from the NHL. And apparently there may be some changes coming to the NHL draft lottery. Brian Burke, how are you feeling? We will be back in a second. All right. A lovely, 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 lovely time with Donald as always. What a great guy, eh?
Yeah.
End of the show.
Indeed the friend of the show. And
Official.
you know what? I hope that he gets everything he wants in life because he's a great guy, well spoken. Yeah. And just not only just having him on the show, but when we get to talk to him before it and saying goodbye in the Twitter DMs and all that, it's just he's really one of the great guys on the program. And it's great to have him as a friend of the show. It's so emotional. But anyway, we actually don't have that much to talk about. It's been a slow part of the week, actually, for NHL news. But there is some big stuff, and we talked about it a bit with Will.
With Donald.
God dang it. I meant Donald, I'm sorry. Listening, because of course you are. What a great guy. Anyway, though, the NHL and its new TV deal. It's apparently expected today that they will be announcing a 7-year U.S. broadcast deal. Now, honestly, we took such a long intermission there. It may have happened by now.
They actually did announce it. Yes.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
Oh, my God. Congratulations. Oh, my. Okay, so. Oh, my God. So, anyway, it's a 7-year deal, apparently, with ESPN. Alex, you had some of the details earlier. Do you want to quickly read it? Because I'm getting a call I just urgently need to take.
Yeah, no worries. I'll go through 2 tweets I have here. So it's it's more a Disney deal with NHL, obviously, because ESPN is owned by Disney. They also have ABC as well, so that's why you hear ABC and ESPN. Here it is. ABC and ESPN will have 4 of the next 7 Stanley Cup finals. This is starting next year, not this year. ABC and ESPN will have 1 conference final each year. There will be 25 regular season games on ABC or ESPN. I'm assuming that's per team. ESPN Plus will stream more than 1,100 games. And ESPN Plus / Hulu will exclusively stream 75 national games. That's from Andrew Marchand. He works at the New York Post. I have something from CJ, Chris Johnson, obviously, saying expect the NHL's 7-year ESPN deal to be announced later this afternoon at a considerable financial bump from the current U.S. rights agreement, which I believe was $700 million.
Wow.
Great things.
Right there. I just tweeted huge. That's all it's huge.
Yes.
Huge.
Do we have am I able to share my screen?
Give me 1 second. Now you can.
Okay. This is what I remember as a little kid. Very little. It was the Mighty Ducks were a thing still. But I just remember this. From when last time ESPN had the NHL. So I'm showing, I don't want to show the Jeremy Roenick one for obvious reasons. So I'm showing Scott Gomez on the New Jersey Devils. Not because of the Montreal connection. It's because of the video game. I know Adam just left because of that. But yeah, these were fun games. I remember I played ESPN NHL 2K5. These were fun games. I should have shown this one. I'm sorry, Adam. Martin St. Louis. That's a good middle ground. But anyways, yeah, that's what I want to show. This is what I thought about when it came to the ESPN deal. So not thinking that there's going to be another game to compete with EA, but we don't know what the potential is when it comes to this deal, that the possibilities could be endless.
We can't hear you, Adam. No,
we can't hear you, Adam.
One important thing to remember about this deal is that it's not fully just going to be ESPN or Disney. They're not the sole rights holders. There is going to be a second entity involved in this. I guess I'm surprised that hasn't been announced yet. I can go read the press release, and maybe they did announce it and I missed it. But that's going to be very interesting because there's a couple names, couple companies that I have in mind for that. It's going to be very interesting to see when that comes out.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, this is something we've always been talking about, and Donald mentioned it as well. Just in terms of the major league sports, the NHL, it's lagging behind a lot when it comes to revenue, when it comes to viewership. That I think this is just gonna lead to better numbers. Frankly, like what we always talk about is the growth of the game, because it's easy for us. We always think about that. I think we're spoiled in Toronto, we're spoiled in Montreal sometimes, where we don't look at like the bigger picture with things. Where I don't know why, for some reason, I just think of a kid in South Dakota or something thinking about hockey, or not knowing yet that he or she is gonna be a fan eventually of hockey.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Adam is back.
Okay, hold on. No, I can't hear you. Okay,
Awesome.
hello. Are we
Yes.
all good?
Can you hear us?
What was the last thing you heard from me?
You ran away when I said Scott Gomez.
I did not run away at you.
Okay.
I fell.
I fell over. Okay.
I wiped out. My beanbags fell again. Like that was like
Your beanbag?
You might need a new chair.
Don't
Your beanbag?
Yeah, I had two beanbags stacked on top of each other because I haven't fixed my stools again. So, and as you said that, they fell and I wiped out. Like my mic fell and everything.
Another reason to watch the YouTube channel.
Yeah, great. Watch out. Wipe out. Okay. On the TV deal. It was, oh my God. Okay. All right. Hello. We're going to edit the setup of it here. It's just, that's it. It's huge. Cause there was, if ESPN and the NHL hadn't had that split back in the day with the lockout, you can only imagine what the league would be looking like today. So it's better late than never, I guess. But just huge for the NHL. I mean, it really, really is. We talked about advertising all the time on this show, and we're going to talk about the NWHL, but the Dream Gap Tour for the Women's Player Association, right? I forgot the game in New York was happening because it didn't really feel like the big leagues were even mentioning it, like broadcasting. Sports and that. So like the game had happened, I was like, oh crap, I've missed this. And obviously that's not the NHL, but hoping that the NHL and the women's league do something here. Again, advertising important, and ESPN's the big dog in town, right? So yeah, and then we'll see what happens with the other part of the deal, and just once we get the details of the exact numbers. Can you guys remind me, is the TV deal part of hockey related revenue?
Yes.
Okay, and the expansion fee is not.
Nope. It is
okay, and what's important about the related revenue is when it gets back to a certain point, we're able to raise the cap, which might not be for a while now, but this definitely helps.
I believe the number is $4.5 billion
that they need to hit in order
to increase the cap. Yes.
Okay, and you know what? I think the old TV deal, was just under $1 billion or something in the US. So listen, if it dwarfs that, we're looking good here. We're looking really, really good here.
Yes.
Better than NBC. Is that we hope that Jack Edwards still has a job somehow, and not just locally, because he's good for the game. I think he's really good for the game. Alex, you wanted to talk about other possible networks that could have a piece
Yeah, I mean, there's two that stand out to me. Like, I just don't see Fox being a national rights holder, Fox Sports being a national rights holder. I can see NBC being a minority rights holder in this. I know their sports station is supposed to shut down at the end of the season, but I can still see them the odd night showing a hockey game if they need to. Another one, and I haven't heard much about them being considered, but DAZN has been really big in in other industries. Obviously, they took the Premier League rights from Sportsnet, along with I think the cup competitions there as well. Plus, they have some NFL stuff, and they already have KHL hockey, right? So hockey isn't necessarily new to them, but they are a growing entertainment or media company who I think could, if not this time around, and I know 7 years is a long way away, but I think they're eventually going to be involved in the NHL. It's just a matter of when.
Before you keep going quickly, from Sean Shapiro, been told annually ESPN will pay more than $400 million to the NHL as part of the deal. So I'm guessing that means $400 a year.
Yeah. So
if you put that into a calculator, for some reason when I did it on my phone, it came out as 2.8 E9.
That's $2.8 billion over 7 years.
Billion.
No, it's the exponent. I don't know. Don't ask. We're journalists.
Alex is he's our math guy.
It's beep boop beep boop beep boop beep boop 2.8 are 400 times 7 beep boop beep boop.
I like what you mentioned there with the NBC part, where I know that they're getting rid of the sports section, but I think that there's been a relationship with the audience already that's been built there, that they could still have a minority stake with that they could still show some games here and there.
Yep, you hope so. Anything else, guys, you want to add?
Plus, they have the staff, right, to still do that. Yes, they're probably going to cut some of those guys who were part of that broadcast, but if they're going to stay in, that saves jobs in the media, and I think we need that right now. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, lads. Would you rather talk about the NWHL to start or the draft lottery changes?
NWHL. Let's get nuts.
This is really, really good news for women's hockey. A little bit from the Canadian press via Sportsnet here. We'll get another chance.
No, you're cutting in and out. So I pause it. Whenever you're ready.
All right. NWHL news. Great stuff here for the women's game. The National Women's Hockey League plans to complete its playoff March 26th to 27th in Brighton, Massachusetts, after its COVID-19 bubble burst in Lake Placid, New York, last month. This is a Canadian press article via Sportsnet. Why does this matter? Well, obviously, women's hockey, big deal. Now, this is what we want to know about, lads. The Toronto Six, the team we're all rooting to win here, will be facing the Boston Pride. And then the other side of the semis will be Minnesota versus the Connecticut Whale, who I do not like because can we stop ripping off the Whalers, please? But fantastic news. The 3 games will be televised. So all the semis will happen on the 26th, followed by the championship game the following day. The 3 games will be televised on NBCSN and streamed on NBA Sports digital platforms. The games will be streamed on Twitch in Canada. So, fantastic news, because not only do they get to finish their season, but the games are going to be national on NBC. And that was a big criticism when the season shut down for them before. They didn't get their national games, but at least they're getting it now.
Sure. Yeah, Daniel, you want to go first?
Yeah, for sure. Like when everything kind of happened with like Placid, and we just didn't know where the direction of things were going. I like that not only the effort is back, but they've kind of doubled down on it. Mm-hmm. That they're kind of ensuring that every avenue you're kind of looking at now, especially with the TV one, that you're going to be able to see these games, that the accessibility aspect of it is going to be there, and they're going to be able to kind of get those numbers up. They're going to be able to get that support up. So that's just great news.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's really important that they get to finish their tournament. And I think there was a lot of speculation. I think when things shut down, it seemed like it was canceled. And I think that obviously clearly not the case. And it's really good to get things back and going. And I think you made an important point. The final is going to be nationally televised by NBC. And what's better than any type of final hockey, and whether in whatever sport, it's always the best.
Mm-hmm. Right. Hey, it's I'm guessing that we're all rooting for Toronto to win. By the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Could you imagine if if they do lose to Boston? By the way, I feel like it would be the worst thing because then there truly be kind of christened as real Toronto sports teams to kind of be losing to Boston again. I think it's almost like poetry, really. We also have some news more in the NHL to do with the draft lottery. Now, it sounds like the draft itself, by the way, looks like it's going to stay in July, which is unfortunate. It's going to be great to look back on this draft and really think about where certain guys go in draft rankings because it could be throw everything out the window, really. So this was originally from Chris Johnson. These are some of the changes to the draft that the NHL or so the draft lottery that the NHL are going to send to the Board of Governors. This is per Chris Johnson. Teams would be limited to no more than 2 lottery wins in a 5-year period. Teams would only be allowed to jump 10 spots with a lottery win. There would be a reduction in the number of picks decided by the lottery from 3 to 2. And these changes, for some stupid reason, if they were approved, will not be into effect until 2022. So, whatever. I mean, okay. But again, Brian Burke has been lobbying for these types of changes forever now, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of a fan of how it looks like they want to go this route.
He's been in the job for what, less than 2 months now?
Yep.
But he's always been on.
You're right. He's always has been on. And now he's got all the things he's wanted in place.
Yeah, he's got Crosby. He's got the draft lottery changes coming. And apparently on Monday, it was reported by Friedman that the final decision on whether to postpone or not would come in the next few days in the draft. But again, nothing official, but it's really, really sounds like it's going to stay. Again, CBA issues were just too much of an issue, especially with our rights and all that type of stuff. So we got the Leafs, we got the Habs. Where do we want to start, guys?
We'll start with the Habs.
Okay, good. I like that decision. A rough loss to the Canucks. A game where, Carey Price is really turning his season around. Yeah, you can say it's only 3 games, but you take the decision. A last minute sort of defensive egg laying just sort of led to the Canucks tying the game up, and then they would win in the shootout because the shootout is a joke. And it's a real story for Montreal. Somehow they are 0-7 outside of regulation this year. I think they are the only team who have not won outside. I think the Islanders had a shootout win the other day. And now, as a result, Montreal, that sole team. What the hell is happening?
I don't know.
It's like a mixed bag, I think, of after those huge changes. It's not like, they're riding a streak or anything, but it's just kind of a back and forth. Like I'm happy that, it's not kind of like a slump, but it's kind of more of a consistency issue.
In what way? What do you mean?
I think you're going to have the Winnipeg game and then you're going to have the Vancouver game where I know it was close, but it's just, man, to kind of just keep things together at the end.
It's like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, with what Daniel's saying there. I don't know if it's a lack of consistency. I see it more of, I think this team looks different under Dominic Ducharme than they did under the last part of Claude Julien. Whether that is that Dominic Ducharme actually has the room now, or they're actually playing different. I think a lot of it is more crappy bounces, and that happens. It's hockey. It's so random that, one bad bounce can completely change the entire game. And I think maybe that's what's happening here, because from what I've heard from Adam, I don't necessarily see it as, you don't go from beating Winnipeg 7-1 and then barely beating Vancouver.
The 7-1 Vancouver, I want to talk about bounces. The 7-1 game was seriously, you could not have worse bounces for Vancouver and luckier for, like the first goal when Hellebuck went to play the puck behind the net, but it was just this incredibly lucky bounce right to Josh Anderson. It's like you couldn't write that. I don't know if it's like consistency. Like again, since Ducharme has come in, you can definitely tell there's been a change. And again, it just they were playing really, really well. And again, special teams continue to give them momentum, which is huge. They killed off a 5-on-3 from the Canucks early in the first period. It was just they blew it in the last minute 30. I think it's more an issue of like, are there still the growing pains with Ducharme? I guess, but like, and then again, how many games under his tenure do we really have to go off of? I don't know exactly. Like in regulation, we always know what they're going to be in 5-on-5, but like, you just look at the standings, and I think of the 7 games they've lost in regulation, right? Sorry, outside of reg. Imagine if you had 3 of those points, 3 of those 7 that you've just sort of lost. Like, it's not biting them yet, because I mean, we'll see what these 2 games coming up after tonight, I think on Thursday and maybe like Friday or Saturday against the Flames. Like, those are massive games for Montreal, but it feels like the moment they hit 3-on-3, I don't know what the issue is there. It's just they can't just seem to play well. Like, they can't get the puck. And like, we started even seeing the 3 forward like stuff, and there was a bit of flash of brilliance there, but it's just, I don't know how they can just be so bad on 3-on-3. It just seems to be when like one issue is solved, another arises. Like, obviously they have their 5-on-5 play when they figure out special teams. Well, now, God damn it, here we are in 3-on-3. And remember how they played 4-on-4 hockey against the Leafs. That game, they got picked apart because they couldn't seem to play at that game. I don't know what it is, but like, they have talent too. I mean, like, it just makes sense.
Yeah, I was about to say that as well. Like, it's not like their entire team is filled with big guys who can't skate. Obviously, their team is a mix of skill, speed, and size. And that's why the point I made at the beginning of the season, where they're going to be Montreal, based on what's on paper, is they're going to be a very difficult team for a lot of teams in the Canadian division. So the fact that 3-on-3, you throw out Suzuki, you throw out Kotkaniemi, you throw out Tatar, like you have, and that's just the beginning of the list. Like, there's guys on this team who are fast, and it's 3-on-3. Like, that's where these guys excel, where those fast guys and skilled guys should excel.
It's weird. I don't know if it's a difference of, you have to make a quick pass if you're facing the Canadians, because they had, they're a team that the moment the other team has the puck, they got 2 guys on you. Like, they're forechecking that, and they're just sort of bite to get the puck. They might be the hardest working team in the division, but it's just, I don't know if you can just sort of play that bite you in the corner style on OT again, because it's just so much wide open ice.
Right.
It's weird. It's really, really weird. And it's just, you can't be going into those frames and just automatically think you're going to lose. And at that point, you might think it. And guess what? Yo Armia didn't touch 3-on-3 last night. You didn't. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's, you'd love to see Ducharme start trusting Alex Romanov, because you'd expect him to just love that sort of play. I don't know, man. And then the shootout is, I know a lot of people were getting mad at Tomas Tatar because his third attempt, he tried to be fancy and go through the legs, but at least he was trying something. Druid and Suzuki, I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't great, man. And then tonight they have the game that I've been dreading all year. They play the Canucks again, but it's an 11 p.m. start.
Oh, these are so late. On a school night.
I would have taken it if it was last night, because we don't have class on Wednesdays. That's why we record on Wednesdays in the weekday, but...
And we have to get our 8 hours of sleep.
I don't know, man. It's going to be rough. I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch all of it. If that goes to overtime, whoever made the decision to allow that game to start at 11 p.m.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
And again, it's in Vancouver. I get it,
But it's even
10 p.m.s
sorry.
or whatever. But like, I've rarely seen 10:30 starts, much less 11.
The only time you see a 10:30 start is when it's like Anaheim versus San Jose, and that's a 7:30 start time there. So maybe it makes sense, but that's very weird.
And those are two Californian teams, by the way.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Like, come on. Again, like, they made the exception for Toronto on Saturday. Could you not have done it for Montreal on Wednesday? I mean, not even. Don't give me 7 p.m. Like, I would hate if I'm a player. Like, if you, I imagine a lot of like the Vancouver and Leafs players probably hated Saturday because that messes with their schedule. If you move up a game, like we forget the creatures of habits that are NHL players. Like, I just don't get why you did this. Like, come on. Like, I don't know, man. It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be really, really rough. The Leafs, by the way, we'll shift gears here. They've not won a game since Chris Johnson tweeted they were a juggernaut.
So
I don't think it's a coincidence.
this is all Chris Johnson's fault. I just want to point this out.
Touchy subject.
We still love him. If he wants to come on the show, he's obviously more than welcome to.
Yeah.
But this is still all his fault.
Yeah.
And I think he knows it.
He's rolling with it.
He has to. It doesn't seem like he has much choice. They couldn't beat Vancouver. They haven't won since the 3 games against the Oilers. So that's 2 games against Vancouver and 1 game against Winnipeg. And I think that this is my opinion. And I think they were the better team in all 3 games. I think for the first part of the season, they got very lucky with bounces going their way and just being able to win games when they really shouldn't have. And we've talked about it on the show. Like, I think there were multiple games where the other team should have won. And now I think it's starting to bite them in the behind. But I do think, they got last night. They got goalied. I think Connor Hellebuck was, again, clearly he was the reason he was the Vezina winner last year. Demko, I mean, just in general, Demko's looked much better the last few games, even after the Toronto series. They got to get out of the rut. And I think that's the most important thing here, is that they have to get out of this rut without going back to old habits.
Mm.
That's the most important thing here.
I saw in the line rushes that Travis Boyd is taking the Austin Matthews spot right now in practices this morning. Yeah.
On power play or regular?
Oh, regular, because it's Austin Matthews is absent from the practice.
Well, and that leads to our next point, because Matthews is clearly playing hurt. Like, we know it. Like, we've known for a few games now since there was that clip of him on the bench wrapping up his wrist. And like, Sheldon Keefe can say what he wants, even if it was nagging him to start the season. I mean, he scored twice last night, didn't he, or just once?
Twice.
Twice.
Yes.
And he's at 20 goals now. But the question becomes, because leading up to the trade deadline, the Leafs schedule is actually not that bad. That's why Friedman was talking about if they're making a trade soon, it's going to be pretty soon, because of the way their schedule is. This would impact their season the Leafs way. Like, would also not make sense then at this point. I think we talked about it a bit last show, or in a call or text. We talk so much. It all blends together at some point.
Is that a bad thing or a good thing?
Because we're great friends.
Well, it's not. Well, yeah, we are. But it's just for the podcast when you
Oh,
try
yeah.
to think of a
No,
point.
I know.
It's like when you listen to Hockey Central, you watch the broadcast and 31 Thoughts, and Jeff Merrick mentions the same points in all 3 shows, and you're like, I know this. It's like, how many times have we probably said in the same conversation and gone on the show and said something? It's like, I don't know how many times. It's like a parrot. I don't know.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Yeah, I mean, like,
Matthews.
at any point in this season, it takes one bad shot, by the way. one bad shot in the lane and like it could make Matthews' wrist worse. I don't get for a second, and maybe this is just the NHL and the way it is, why the hell he's not sitting to rest that and get it to 100%. Donald talked about it. NBA players with a bad injury, something it was not even bad, minor, and they'll take a whole week to sort of figure it out.
Yeah.
Would a week or two not deal with Matthews right now pretty well?
I'm not entirely sure what the game plan here is with Matthews. And I agree with you. I would say that, listen, if he needs to sit a week or two, and then we know his wrist will be 99% rather than 75% or whatever it is now, I say you do it. You have the lead in the division. And I mean, whether it's 6 points or 8 points or whatever, you have a lead in the division. You know that you have depth pieces that you can throw in there, plus moving guys up, right? Hyman doesn't have to play on the third line. He can play in the top 6 if you want him to. Same with Mikheyev. You have guys you can move up there. They've played well without Matthews before. They held McDavid pointless 2 games without Matthews. Like, I think that has to say something to someone. Whether it's blown out of proportion or not, I think Toronto fans have to get, hey, we were able to do this without Austin Matthews. I think sitting him a week and a half or whatever is not the end of the world. And considering that, you know what, they're not playing many games the next 2 weeks. They play Winnipeg tomorrow night, Winnipeg Saturday, and then they play Ottawa Sunday, and then they don't have a game until the Friday. That's right. That's 4 games in a week and a half.
There's time to regroup in between and kind of look at really what the game plan is and what's going to work. I think these back-to-backs, these games that have been kind of going on where you'll see like them going like every other day. I think that they'll need this. They'll definitely need that. And when you come to think about like what Elliot Friedman said about a trade, like I really agree that, I don't know, my mind is already, and I know it's not good to like, it's already fixated on Eric Stahl because I think Buffalo will just take not whatever, but they'll take at least some degree of compensation to get something out of him.
I know we were gonna do this, I think next week, but there's 2 important positions. I'm not gonna name names, but just to go with Daniel's point there's 2 positions that need to be addressed, and it's up to Dubas at the end of the day to determine what's more important at the moment. You need a second line left wing to play with John Tavares and William Nylander, or you need a third line center. They need to decide. That's where the improvement's going to come. It's not like you're not going to go out there and get another defenseman. Like, you might get a depth defenseman so that Martin Marincin never actually has to touch the ice. But you're not going to go out there and mess with the defense who's actually looked more competent in the last, since January 15th. Then I don't know, since forever. I've never seen a competent defense in this city.
Yeah. And again, getting depth guys and may not play right away. I mean, how many times have we said this before? You need so many defensemen in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So goddamn many. And you'll at least have those guys who are going to be the stable force. Like, of course, they got the Riley, they got Muzz, they got Barry.
No,
Not
they
Barry,
don't have
sorry.
Barry. Hall. Brody.
No, I didn't mean. Yeah, I meant
Brody.
Brody. And if you have to, I know he plays the right, but you could always go the Tampa situation and just stack the left side of Morgan, of Brody. Like, you obviously don't want to, because there's no one else who should play with Brody other than Morgan Riley. No. But there is seriously though, there are options, right? But again, get defensemen. Honestly, center depth is important. I like the Eric Stahl, but yeah, we'll talk about that. We are planning on doing a trade deadline preview with the Canadian teams, really.
We're not going to stay on during the trade deadline, like from the morning until.
Absolutely not. There's going to be no Canadian action, or very limited amounts.
The reason we're doing that, by the way, is as Alex is alluding to. Obviously, teams then when Canadian teams are making deals with players involved in like American teams, they got to do the 2-week quarantine. So we might have a bit of a different trade deadline with Canadian teams. That will be about 2 weeks before. There might be like depth moves. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Buddy in Winnipeg goes and gets like a 13th forward or 7th on the deadline itself. But if there's a big move to be made, an impactful one, it's probably going to be done early. So we're going to be doing that preview show probably next Sunday. Not this one.
Soon.
We'll see. We'll talk about it after the show.
Yeah.
You know, we have been on the Zoom call for like 3 hours.
Yes, we have.
I don't know if you can tell, but I'm extremely tired. Okay, I think that is everything. If you care, everyone, Astros right-hander Forrest Whiteley, one of the team's top pitching prospects, will need Tommy John surgery. What is Tommy John surgery?
It's the arm, so it's the pitching arm, so it's like here. It's like a ligament. Tommy John's based on like the doctor that discovered how to do this for pitchers. So it's a thing that like every single pitcher has gone through, and it's basically like the timeline to recover from it is like an ACL, so it's like a full year.
Wow.
Oh, tough. It's like what happened with Marco Rossi. It's gonna miss like the whole year. Eh? Okay, well, that's everything. If you enjoyed this episode of the show, be sure to check out the YouTube to get a visual experience. Watch a video version of the podcast, because of course you would. Be sure to check out the show's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Remember the Facebook?
Yeah.
All that type of stuff. Thank you, the voice said, as always, for being a fantastic platform for the show. Check us out on the iOS podcast app, Spotify, all that kind of stuff. And on the podcast app, leave us 5 stars. I still want to know who left 2 stars. Let's have a talk. You're wrong.
Thanks, guys.